Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, Joe on Joe listeners, it's me, Joe Slepsky, and I'm back and you're back. This is the quarantine re-releases of our original tracks going back 4 years, and I hope you're enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying reliving them, warts and all. I think you can easily hear where I'm finding myself and finding what the show turned out to be, so I'm really happy to share these with you guys. Again, we pulled these back from behind the Patreon wall, and I wanted to make them available to everybody during this time to share and give and listen and have fun, especially because G.I. Joe's back on YouTube now. So, yeah, so I appreciate that. And you guys can always follow me at Joe on Joe Pod on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what you think of some of these early episodes, how terrible they are, or how funny they are, or how awful they are. And we're starting recording back up again, so reach out to me. Let me know, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to join me for an episode. I believe we're going to jump into G.I. Joe Extreme very, very soon. So without any further ado, here is the OG track from Joe on Joe 4 years ago. Enjoy.
You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello and welcome to Joe on Joe. I am your host, Joe Slepsky, and I'm so happy to be back this week to celebrate part 2 of the Synthoid Conspiracy, where we see glorious Cobra making Cobra great again by disbanding the G.I. Joes, replacing these traitorous military officers with Synthoids that are right-thinking and Cobra-centric, and finally putting G.I. Joe in their place. I cannot wait to get back into it this week. So happy to have you. Remember to find me on Twitter, Joe on Joe Pod, Facebook, Joe on Joe Pod. You can email me at joeonjoepod@gmail.com. Remember, hashtag it, make Cobra great again. And we're going to start off with the Synthoid Conspiracy Part 2, where my hope of hopes is that the G.I. Joe team will be disbanded forever, Snake Eyes brought up on treason charges, and the world is safe again thanks to all glorious Cobra Commander. And now here we go into the Synthoid Conspiracy Part 2. Hashtag make Cobra great again.
Yo, Joe!
Now, I'm surprised to see that Cobra is not featured in a more prominently victorious position here in the opening of this Part 2 of the Synthoid Conspiracy. You'd think that with Cobra's complete and utter domination takeover, they would have had the time to remake the opening to show them in a little bit more of a favorable light, but you know what? We're going to deal with that. We still have the same old opening where G.I. Joe, sneak attacks and kind of takes out Cobra and whatever. Listen, they want to live in a fantasy world, they can live in a fantasy world. But this portion here, the defend human freedom against Cobra, you know what? Cobra is all about freedom. Cobra is about the freedom to let you make your own choices, the freedom to get big government out of your lives. That's what Cobra is all about. Cobra doesn't want to take over the world. Cobra wants to liberate the world by liberating you from the oppression of the government. So we start out with a good recap. Let's hear it.
Forces were conducting war games when suddenly Generals Howe and Franks, Colonel Sharp, and Admiral Ledger were captured by Cobra forces.
Time for a nap, gentlemen.
The officers were then replaced with Synthoid duplicates, artificial humanoids, loyal only to Cobra.
Excellent. Excellent.
Hail Cobra! To tie the hands of the G.I. Joe forces, the Synthoid generals stopped the flow of supplies to G.I. Joe headquarters.
Out of gas!
Out of ammo! With the team at its weakest, Cobra struck again, capturing Duke and secretly replacing him with a Synthoid. The Synthoid General Franks declared the Joe team disbanded.
From this moment on, there is no more G.I. Joe.
But Mutt's dog, sensing that Franks was an imposter, attacked the general.
Take that dog and have it destroyed.
The Joes were now at war with their own army. Even rock and roll appeared to be doing the bidding of the Synthoids.
Don't move,
See,
Mutt.
The one right-thinking Joe is on the side of...
both of you.
Oh, and he turns out he's not on board either.
Thanks.
This guy, Rock and Roll, he just cuts a hole in the fence for Mutt and Junkyard. Instead of being executed like the two dogs that they are, he cuts a hole in the fence for them to escape, which they do. They make their way to the nearest river, and they get away. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the series could have ended right here. Just right here. Joe's disbanded.
General Franks, you can't.
Cobra in charge of a bunch of generals. Everyone in jail. Mutt on the run. Cobra just won. Let's end the series, but unfortunately, whatever. This story had to keep going.
Our own army against
So
us?
Mutt and Junkyard are going to have to be the heroes.
Badly do you want the answer,
And
Joe?
look at this.
Enough to trust me?
Glorious Destro, who typically I'm on the side of right here, looks like he is betraying Cobra, a turncoat. So he approached Mutt with the offer to help him take down Cobra.
The Synthoids are perfect
Now back at Cobra headquarters, the real Duke is being entertained by Zartan and Cobra Commander. And Cobra Commander is explaining the Synthoid process and kind of giving a recap for viewers who missed the first episode. Now, one of the failings that Cobra has here is they have to keep Duke alive. I would like to think it's because they constantly need him in order to keep the DNA banks if they need to make Synthoids, you know? Some people would say if they had killed him, it might have been easier. But again, you know what? Cobra's not a bunch of ruthless killers. Not a bunch of ruthless killers. They're just a bunch of liberators. So Duke tries to escape, and he's clobbered by some Crimson Guardsmen. Taken away. Cobra Commander wearing his hood in this episode, looking resplendent. A couple of Crimson Guardsmen escorting Duke, and he's going to karate chop and karate kick them and escape because, you know, this guy doesn't know when to quit. He's beaten, and he just keeps on going. Some might admire that kind of tenacity. Others might think it's pretty futile. But he escapes in the into the water. He's getting chased back. The beautiful Cobra Mountains.
Bring me some more coffee.
Yes, General Franks.
Scarlett's finally being put to good use. She's getting coffee for General Franks and basically working as his secretary, which is finally, it's about the right time. You know, I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. But she's making a covert call, a treasonous
Spread
call,
the
some
word.
would say,
We'll meet at
to
midnight in
Duke.
the old bunker.
I copy. Over and out.
saying that they have to get the old G.I. Joe team together again. That seems like treason to me. She doesn't know that Duke is really a right-thinking Cobra Synthoid. So he, of course, tells the generals, and they report it to the glorious Cobra Commander. Now,
Somebody's signaling from the Pentagon.
Breaker, still working some communication device, shockingly slacking off. He, he's tracking the source to our glorious commander. I'm gonna say the only reason this isn't being sent on an encrypted channel is because some failure of Zartan's. It's not Cobra Commander's fault. It's something to do with Zartan's failure with making the Synthoids that they were dumb enough to not send this thing on an encrypted channel. Now, back to the jungle. Mutt wakes up from being gassed by Destro. That apparent turncoat Destro. And he's waking up. He doesn't really know what's going on, but the moccasins are still out looking for Duke.
The Joes who couldn't come have sent word.
So now we have
they
a secret
stand
enclave
by
of
any
Joes.
decision
Let's
we
see,
make
who's
tonight.
there? Clutch, Rakondo, Steeler, Covergirl, Roadblock, Gung-Ho, Airborne, Wild Bill.
He's yapping with
Looks
somebody
like Flash
here
is there.
on the open sea.
And all these guys are committing treason. Doc's also there, and Flint. They're all committing treason because they've been disbanded as a group, and they shouldn't be getting together like this.
We're wrong.
I say we go for broke.
So,
We need our Sky Strikers.
I would like to bring all these guys up on charges. I feel like this should be good evidence to use in court later on.
Then retake Joe headquarters
So they
and
make
find
their
out who
plans,
Franks is talking
and the
to.
right-thinking Duke Synthoid kind of slips off, and he's gonna go warn
Set your
Cobra.
trap at Joe headquarters. Nothing can save them now.
See, he's doing the right thing. So we go in a commercial with one person doing the right thing. Hashtag Make Cobra Great Again. Today's file card feature is on the heavy machine gunner, codenamed Roadblock. His file name is Marvin F. Hinton, and his primary military specialty is the infantry heavy weapons. His secondary military specialty is a cook. His birthplace is Biloxi, Mississippi, and he's a grade E4. Roadblock's dream was to become a gourmet chef. He was working as a bouncer to earn money to attend the Escoffier School in France when an army recruiter convinced him that the army could train him. Roadblock joined but found army menus and preparation techniques way too appalling, so he transferred to the infantry. He's a qualified expert in the M2 Browning 50 cal heavy machine gun, all Warsaw-packed heavy machine guns, the M16, and the M1911A1 auto pistol. When Marvin joined the Army, he quickly became an expert with the M2 Browning 50 cal heavy machine gun, which is a weapon most soldiers couldn't lift, much less fire accurately. Now, this brought him to the attention of the G.I. Joe team, and he was asked to join them in their fight against Cobra. Assuming the codename Roadblock, he soon became an important and respected member of the Joes, known for his fierce loyalty to his teammates and prowess on the battlefield as well as in the kitchen. Quote, the 50 cal Browning weighs 84 pounds. Add 50 pounds for the ammo, and that's about 134 pounds of steel, generating 2,930 FPS in the muzzle velocity at a cyclic rate of 550 CPM. Anyone who can handle that doesn't need a machine gun to keep me away. Roadblock is absolutely one of the top 5 Joes of all time. He is known very much for his rhymes. He likes to speak in rhymes on the show. He's playful. He's fun. He's got a fun-loving attitude. I want to say his cousin is heavy duty. I also want to say for a time in the real world that G.I. Joe lost the rights to him. So that's why the first character in the first movie was not Roadblock, but he was famously portrayed by The Rock in G.I. Joe Part 2. I love Roadblock. I want you to love him too. And so, Marvin F. Hinton, Roadblock, we salute you.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
Listen, I don't know for sure. It's just what I'm hearing. I'm hearing people saying, that G.I. Joes are a bunch of losers, whiners, traitors, quitters. It's just what I'm hearing. It's what everyone's saying. So, it must be true. So the Synthoid Duke makes his way back to the group. Snake Eyes is there. Now, I have to grudgingly admit, Snake Eyes looks pretty dope. Spirit's there.
All right, then let's get our weapons.
And Texan Wild Bill is happy to be an outlaw. Oh, there's the Mauler driver. Now, the Joes are going to break into a military base and steal their weapons back. Now,
Take it easy, miss.
who's surprised that they're a bunch of thugs breaking in and entering and stealing military equipment? I'm not. They've always shown themselves to be militarized thugs who, with no respect for law and order, not even Law and Order, the future Joe.
Soldier, your equipment's
Well,
out of commission.
now they're going, they pull a Rambo and they blow up a machine gun a whole room full of communications devices. Clutch is stealing a whole gas tank full of gas tanker.
You got it.
And Ace is going to steal this and probably refuel some Sky Strikers and take off with them. But the base isn't literally in flames thanks to the G.I. Joes.
Rock and roll, you got my weapons?
They free
Green
quick kick.
knees? That's them.
Although Rock and Roll is holding a sword barehanded by the sharp point side of the sword. That should have sliced his fingers off. But, we're going to look past that. Cobra must not have been behind the animation on this.
Light.
You all need more brain.
Wild Weasel, out in the swamps, still looking for Duke. They can't find him. Duke's apparently doing a good job. He probably got some of the same military training that Cobra did. And he survived underwater by breathing through a reed.
Odd. There are
And
no
the Joe's
guards.
APC is approaching the Sky Strikers because they're going to steal those once again. More thievery. Let me just take a moment here to go off on a little bit of a jag. I think we've all seen how much of a resource waste the Joes are on our economy. I think we've seen how ineffectual they are. They've never been able to stop Glorious Cobra in any of their long-term efforts. Sure, they win a couple battles here and there.
Been thirsty a long
Ace here is talking about guzzling that fuel. Hello, we're addicted to oil and addicted to the gas that comes out of the Middle East.
For you.
So now
am here.
Destro shows up and he makes an offer to the Joes. Now,
Cobra has replaced your generals
Not very
with
happy with that.
artificial replicas, which serve
he's
Cobra
kind of selling out
Commander.
Cobra.
What a load of malarkey.
No, let him talk.
Yeah, let
Their
him talk,
purpose
Scarlet.
was to turn your own nation's army against you and bring about your final and
Utterly
total destruction.
ridiculous.
But with my help,
Listen.
you can.
Don't
As
listen
far
to
as I,
him. He's
okay,
our
I'm going
enemy.
to lie in Destro. Lion Destro wants to say whatever he wants. He wants to paint Cobra in whatever kind of light. Oh, now we know why.
I made them destroy it with a device called the neutralizer.
He's doing it. He's selling out Cobra because Zartan dared make a Synthoid of Destro. You know what, Destro? I'm sorry. Lion Destro.
Go unpunished. He will learn a painful lesson.
You can't keep living like
his scheme.
You're either with Cobra or you're against Cobra. We're going to hold this against you. See? He knows. Lion Destro. Duke knows all about it. Now, the rest of the generals and the army shows up to, wow, they've really circled, there's a lot of regular military vehicles. And there's the Joes teamed up with Destro.
You must fly to my ship, the Valkyrie. I'll give you the
How
coordinates.
quickly they embrace their enemy.
Before we commence firing.
Just
We'll
saying.
never make it.
This will
So it's a
buy
bit of a
you the time
standoff.
you need.
Destro holds up his medallion and a bunch of unmanned drones. Hello, President Obama. Drone strikes. All these drones land, and they're going to attack the U.S. military. Actually, let me see. What are they doing here? They're not attacking. Whoa, this is actually kind of cool. Not attacking the military. The drones land, and they build a electrified fence, which protects the Joes, and it's stopping all the shelling and all the laser fire. It's kind of a cool device. I got to give Destro credits for that. So,
Force field will not hold much longer.
yeah, as soon as that force field breaks down, the military would be able to reach the Joes. But in the meantime, all the Joes, they all escape on their Sky Strikers, and Destro is going to show them the way to the Cobra base where they can take out the Synthoids. I can't say I'm a huge fan of this, but Synthoid Duke jumps into Sky Striker with Scarlet, and they take off down the runway with the good old US of A military trying to do the right thing and stop these awful Joes. Duke's still on the run in the swamp. Looks like he just might have gotten, yep, just got fun. I feel like the G.I. Joes have gotten, there's a lot of swamp action. Like between the Dreadnoks, there's a lot more swamps in G.I. Joe than I think any other cartoon or any other form of entertainment. It's all about swamps. I guess without Swamp Thing, though. I guess outside of Swamp Thing. The Joes are always in swamps.
G.I. Joe will
We're
return
going to
after
commercial.
these messages. Now back to G.I. Joe.
Yeah, obviously. Not more swampy than Swamp Thing. But beyond Swamp Thing, the Joes are always in swamps. Dreadnoks live in swamps. The Cobra bases half the time are backed up next to a swamp, even when they're sometimes in desert locales. It's a lot of swamps. Luckily for Duke, not luckily for anyone who wants the good guys to win, Mutt and Junkyard show up, and they attack Copperhead. Now, I think the last time we saw Copperhead in one of these spots, he also got shanghaied by a bunch of Joes, and they pretended to be him to sneak into the Cobra base again off of a swamp. Nothing good happens in a swamp, everybody. When was the last time you heard something really, really good going on in the swamp? Like, hey, did you hear that they found a cabin in the swamp? Yeah, there's $1 million in there. There's $1 million for everyone who finds the cabin. Was there any dead bodies in there? No dead bodies at all. No dead bodies. No abused children. No murderous intent. Just $1 million for everybody at this cabin in the swamp. That's all. Cut to the Joes. They're on board a Destro aircraft carrier, which is pretty neat.
What are you doing?
Didn't know Destro had aircraft carriers.
Just checking our planes.
But I do like to point out that the Joes are very willing to participate in this plan with Destro, their sworn enemy. So he can easily get a look at all of their technology and all their weapons on their planes, so their Sky Strikers, while they're sitting there getting quote refueled. So maybe Destro will come out of this smiling for Cobra by having some more information about the planes. But
it may be a
I'm not sure how Cobra Commander always
Trap or
forgives
not,
Destro for
we're
these kind
going.
of shenanigans.
There is something you must know
As an
first.
outside observer,
Something I tried to tell you
I
before.
do really
One
like
of you
the
is a Synthoid.
intricate relationship here that Destro does have with Cobra from an entertainment perspective. It's pretty cool. Like, it's pretty sophisticated, where he's his own man, and if you cross him, he's got his own morals and whatever. Now, as a loyal Cobraist myself, hashtag make Cobra great again, not as big of a fan.
Hey, you guys aren't Cobras!
Let's see. Duke and Mutt just crashed a water moccasin into the Cobra base.
But let's split up here. We've got to find General Franks and the others.
And they're heading towards the actual generals that are in captivity. Destro has accused the Synthoid Duke. Now,
your welfare is of no consequence.
I'm hoping and pulling
Just so long as
that he comes out of this
Zartan and
alive.
Cobra Commander learn how dangerous it can be to provoke my anger.
Yeah.
Your planes are ready, and I grow
That's
weary
what
of
we
your
learn
company.
about Destro.
Please
That's really what he's all
leave
about.
now.
Like respect and money and respect. So you kind of respect that, but on the other hand, really, did you have to do it this time? Like we got pretty close. Cobra did. Okay.
Get us out of here.
So
Knew you'd come.
Mutt is going to free all the generals.
Junkyard, are they the real thing?
He asks his dog to verify. The dog barks, verifies they're legit.
Formation of Sky Strikers coming in fast. Red alert!
So now we got the Cobras are being assaulted once again by the thug-like G.I. Joe squadron. We've got a whole bunch of Sky Strikers attacking Cobra Island. And actually, visually, it looks very much like Cobra Island from the comic books. Circular base with like volcano in the middle. So that's kind of cool. That because Cobra Island was always great. And there's a lot of laser fire going on around the island.
We're trapped. Stay
And
out. They've got remote-controlled
a
cannons.
few of the Sky Strikers are kind of trapped within the laser fire. A couple of them get shot down. Gung Ho and Flint, they both escaped. And there's Ripcord and Roadblock. Man, everyone's getting knocked out of the sky. Thank God. Thank God for Cobra ingenuity.
I can't eject. Save yourself.
So Scarlet and Duke, they eject, and Scarlet tells Duke to save himself because his controls are locked. But then she turns and she smiles. Now, why is that? I think Scarlet believed Destro, and she was testing Duke. We'll see what happens there. So it's a firefight. Blue and red lasers flying everywhere. Quick kick. Still no shoes. Still no shirt. Duke heads over to a secret. This is Synthoid Duke, by the way. Heads over to a secret panel, and Scarlet follows him inside the mountain.
Pretty tricky, Scarlet.
She kind of kung fu throws Duke.
Controls are locked. I can't eject.
So alive.
That's
now,
awesome.
where's the real Duke?
You mean your controls are locked? I can't eject. Brr, brr, brr. That's great. I love a Synthoids. Synthoids just become super douchey. Douchey Synthoids. Synthoids are the best, though. Yeah, we're going to make... I mean, Synthoids are going to make Cobra great again. Not me. I didn't mean to say we. Synthoids are going to make Cobra
You're
great.
not so fast, you
Oh!
phony.
And here's the real Duke. And he punches out the Synthoid, and they're getting in a brawl. This is Joe on Joe. Here's Duke on Duke.
You heard her chemical
Now
breath.
we get the whole.
Pack
It's
it
not
in.
me. It's you. I'm not the
Don't listen
Synthoid.
to
I'm the
either of
this.
us.
You know.
Make your own decision, Scarlet. Hold it, boys. If either of you makes a move before we figure out who's who, you're both dog meat.
Oh, so we got some problems to solve here. And Junkyard's going to tell the one. Oh, and he goes after one of the Synthoids, or the one that is the Synthoid. Oh no! Listen, I may be Cobra, but I like dogs. Junkyard just banged his head into a metal door. So the Duke Synthoid, he escaped.
Can't get past those lasers.
And there's a few more Sky Strikers still in the air. Airborne and Ace are flying around. Ace is about to launch a couple missiles. And those missiles, I don't know what they were saving them for, but they just decided now's the right time.
Commander. Duke, you dare to return?
Don't shoot. I'm the Synthoid.
Oh, and see now, Cobra Commander is going to test the Synthoid Duke. And he...
What you've done? The device is set at maximum. You've sent all the Synthoids to their doom.
Oh no.
Men, under our new organizational structure, Cobra must be recognized as our friend.
Joe, baby, are you still recording? Do you have that?
All
Do you have that paperwork and stuff for the insurance? Joe, what? But you're recording in here. What are you?
You want to blame for this?
Shirley, what are you looking? What is Joe? What, did you drop something? Some like liquid or something?
They're getting away.
I'll go after
Joseph.
them, but stop those cannons. They're controlled
So
by the
weird.
switchboard.
Well, your show's still running, Joseph. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's on record. There's a guy he just got exploded to the ground, and they flew, and oh, the lady in the unitard is still there with the red hair, and guy who looks like Ken with angry. There's a lot of there's a lot of military people, and we appreciate the military. We think they're great. They're patriots. Right. Joseph. Just. Oh my God, they put their hands up. Is this like a Hitler thing? What? Okay. The G.I. Joe will return after these messages. And there's a sequence of Jimmy Keegan and Will Ryan and Frank Power, Peter Coulier. I'm just reading stuff, people, because I don't know where my husband went. And I gotta make a car payment. And I don't know where my documentation is. But I guess that's secondary to where's that. Stop licking that. What is that? Oh, God. This is my life. This is my life.